our deep dive into Orson Welles' Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane.
We're going to be using excerpts from the film itself, thanks to the Internet Archive and the original screenplay, as our guides.
Mm-hmm.
You know, most people remember Rosebud.
Yeah.
But we're going way beyond that to really unpack what makes this movie a masterpiece.
Absolutely.
And understand the man behind the enigma.
Right.
Charles Foster Kane.
Charles Foster Kane, yeah.
So
that's exactly what's so fascinating about Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
It's not just a visually stunning film.
Right.
It's a psychological puzzle.
Yeah.
We're invited to piece together Kane's life.
Right.
His motivations, his triumphs, and ultimately his failures to grasp what his legacy truly represents.
Okay, so let's start with that unforgettable opening scene.
Okay.
You see the sprawling, almost decaying estate.
Oh, yeah.
Xanadú shrouded in mystery. And as Kane lies on his deathbed, he utters a single word.
Rosebud.
Rosebud. It's like a giant question mark hanging over the entire film.
Yeah.
And instantly we're hooked.
It's just so masterfully crafted, that opening sequence.
Yeah.
Visually, it's breathtaking.
Yeah.
We see that iconic K gate set against the dawn sky and the dying ape in a cage.
Yeah.
Gazing up towards the only lit window in Xanadu.
Oh, wow.
Kane's room.
Kane's room.
Yeah, it's like the filmmakers are deliberately setting the stage for a journey through Kane's life.
Right.
A search for the meaning behind that final word.
It's like we're detectives of the soul, right?
Absolutely.
But instead of clues scattered at a crime scene, we have fragments of memories and confessions from those who knew him. And speaking of fragments, that newsreel footage that follows is a whirlwind tour of Kane's public life, but it's so contradictory.
It's so contradictory.
He's hailed as a champion of the people, a publishing titan, but then you see headlines calling him a communist and a threat to America.
The newsreel is such a brilliant device.
It is.
It mirrors how we form opinions about public figures.
Right.
Often based on snippets of information, sound bites and headlines.
Right.
You see the word patriot plastered across one newspaper, then traitor on another.
Oh, wow.
It makes you question who is the real Charles Foster Kane?
Right.
And how much of what we see is carefully constructed image making.
It's a powerful commentary on the media's ability to shape public perception.
Oh, absolutely.
Even back then.
Yeah.
And then we see this congressional investigation where Walter P. Thatcher, this Wall Street tycoon, accuses Kane of being a communist.
Oh, yeah.
You immediately get a sense of their rivalry.
Absolutely. Thatcher represents the old guard, the established power structure that Kane initially rebels against. But as Kane's wealth and influence grow, you start to see unsettling parallels between them.
Oh, interesting.
He seems to become the very thing he fought against, driven by that same insatiable desire for control.
That desire for control really comes through in his personal life, too.
Absolutely.
His first marriage to Emily Norton, the president's niece, seems calculated, a strategic move for political power.
Yeah.
But then he throws everyone for a loop.
He does.
When he marries Susan Alexander.
Susan Alexander.
That's a struggling singer.
Right.
It's almost as if with Susan, he's trying to mold her into something she's not to create his own ideal woman. The opulent Chicago opera house he builds for her, left unfinished after their divorce, becomes a monument to his failed attempt to orchestrate her life, her talent, her very being.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the story where Kane sends a cable to his war correspondent.
Oh, yeah.
Saying, you provide the prose poems, I'll provide the war. It speaks volumes about his need to be the architect of his own reality.
Yeah.
But speaking of architects, that brings us to Kane's early days as a newspaperman.
Right.
His takeover of the struggling New York Enquirer. There's the scene where he lays out his declaration of principles, vowing to print the truth and fight for the underprivileged.
Yeah.
It seems so idealistic.
It does.
That's so genuine.
What's interesting is the contrast between the ramshackle Enquirer office at the beginning and the grandeur of the Enquirer's skyscraper later. It's a visual metaphor for Kane's own trajectory. But also a subtle hint that somewhere along the way, something was lost. The ideals he so passionately proclaimed in that declaration seem to fade as his power and ambition grow.
Interesting.
And that's where his new broom approach comes in. He doesn't just want to improve the Inquirer. He wants to dominate the entire newspaper landscape.
Oh, wow.
He poaches the entire staff of the rival Chronicle overnight,
Really?
offering them extravagant salaries.
Wow.
It's a ruthless display of ambition, and it shows how far he's willing to go to achieve his goals.
So you see this montage of newspaper headlines?
Yeah.
Each one bolder than the last.
Right.
Proclaiming Kane's growing influence, his political endorsements, his scathing critiques of his opponents.
Yeah.
It's like watching a media empire being built right before your eyes, brick by brick, headline by headline.
But what's the cost of building such an empire?
Yeah.
We see the cracks begin to appear in Kane's personal relationships.
Right.
The same ambition that fueled his rise now isolates him from those closest to him.
His relationship with Jedediah Leland, his best friend and longtime colleague, really highlights this.
Oh, absolutely.
There's this incredibly powerful scene where Leland, drunk and disillusioned, writes a scathing review of Susan's disastrous opera debut. Kane, furious, fires him, but not before Leland delivers this gut-wrenching critique of Kane's character, calling him out on his manipulative nature, his inability to accept criticism.
It's a pivotal moment in the film.
Yeah.
Leland, who's been with Kane since the beginning, sees through the facade, the carefully constructed persona,
Right.
and exposes the wounded, insecure man underneath.
Yeah.
And it's a wound that seems to run deep, possibly stemming from his childhood.
Right. Remember that flashback to his childhood in Colorado?
Oh, yeah.
We see young Charles playing happily in the snow, oblivious to the fact that his life is about to change forever.
Right.
His mother is signing papers that will send him away to live with Thatcher.
Wow.
Essentially trading your son's love for financial security.
That's tough.
It's a heartbreaking scene, and you can't help but wonder if that early abandonment, that loss of innocence, shaped his insatiable need for control later in life.
Right.
He's trying to create a world where he can never be hurt, never be abandoned again.
That's a really insightful connection.
Yeah.
That childhood trauma, that sense of loss, could absolutely be the root of his deep-seated insecurity.
Right.
It's as if he's trying to build an impenetrable fortress around himself.
Yeah.
A fortress made of wealth, power, and possessions.
But as we see, no fortress, no matter how grand, can truly shield you from pain and loss.
That's right.
His second marriage to Susan, the one that initially seems so different from his calculated union with Emily, ultimately crumbles under the weight of his controlling nature.
Yeah.
She's suffocating under his attempts to mold her into something she's not.
And the irony is that both Emily and Susan represent different aspects of his desires and failings.
Oh, interesting.
Emily, the president's niece, embodies the allure of power and social status. Susan, the struggling singer, represents his yearning for a simpler, more authentic kind of love.
Right.
But in both cases, he fails to see the women for who they truly are, instead projecting his own needs and desires onto them.
And then there's that incredibly powerful scene where Susan attempts suicide. Kane's reaction is chilling. He's not overcome with concern for her well-being.
Oh, wow.
He's enraged, not because she's hurt, but because she's disrupted his carefully constructed world, his illusion of control.
Yeah.
He tears apart her room at Xanadú, smashing furniture, ripping paintings off the walls.
Wow.
It's a terrifying display of his repressed anger and frustration.
And amidst all the chaos and destruction, there's this one poignant moment.
Yeah.
Kane picks up a snow globe, the only object he seems to spare from his rampage.
Oh, wow.
It's a symbol of lost innocence, a longing for a simpler time, perhaps a reminder of his own childhood in the snow, before the burden of wealth and power consumed him.
The snow globe is such a powerful visual metaphor, and it ties directly back to Rosebud, doesn't it?
Exactly.
This elusive symbol that haunts the entire film.
Rosebud isn't just an object. It's a representation of everything. Kane has lost everything he can never recapture.
Right.
It's his childhood, his innocence, his ability to experience genuine joy and connection.
It's like he's chasing a ghost, you know, trying to fill that void with material possessions, with grand gestures, but nothing can truly satisfy that yearning for what's been lost.
Right.
And in the end, all that remains is that single word whispered on his deathbed.
Yeah.
Rosebud.
Rosebud.
A haunting reminder of a happiness that slipped through his fingers.
And the brilliance of the film is that it leaves the interpretation of Rosebud open to us, the viewers.
Yeah.
What does it symbolize for you?
Right.
What are your rosebuds?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What are those things you hold dear? The things that truly define who you are? The experiences that shaped your values and desires?
It's like Wells is holding up a mirror.
Yeah.
Forcing us to confront our own ambition, our own pursuits of happiness?
Right.
Are we chasing empty symbols, or are we seeking genuine connection, meaning, and fulfillment?
That's the power of Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
It transcends the boundaries of time and place.
Right.
It's not just a story about a man's rise and fall.
Mm.
It's a timeless exploration of the human condition.
Yeah.
Our universal longing for love, belonging, and a sense of purpose.
It makes you think about the legacy we leave behind, right?
It does.
All the money, the power, the possessions.
Yeah.
Do they ultimately bring happiness?
Right.
Or do they just create a gilded cage isolating us from the things that truly matter?
That's the core question at the heart of Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
Kane's life serves as a cautionary tale about the pursuit of worldly success at the expense of personal fulfillment.
Right.
He achieved everything he thought he wanted,
Yeah.
yet died alone and unfulfilled,
Right.
whispering the name of a simple childhood sled.
Wow.
It's a stark reminder that true happiness isn't found in acquiring things, but in nurturing relationships, embracing experiences, and living authentically.
Citizen Kane is a film that stays with you long after the credits roll.
Absolutely.
It's a masterpiece of storytelling.
It is.
A visually stunning and emotionally resonant work of art that continues to provoke discussion and introspection decades later.
So the next time you find yourself feeling lost or overwhelmed by the complexities of life, remember Charles Foster Kane and the haunting power of Rosebud.
Rosebud.
Let it be a reminder to hold on to those simple joys,
Yeah.
to cherish the connections that truly matter,
Right.
and to define your own version of success, one that aligns with your values and brings you genuine fulfillment.
Because in the end, those are the things that truly define a life well lived.
Absolutely.